Hi there, I'm David Demchuk, and I'm reading from my new novel, Red X. Who is Nicholas? Asked Trevor, Ryan's roommate. 8 days had passed since anyone had seen Ryan, and Trevor and Victor were in his room, searching for his family's phone number in Windsor, looking through his coat and pants pockets, his desk, the boxes in his closet, and the various scraps of paper piled on the nightstand, the seat of the armchair, and around the portable TV perched on the dresser. Trevor was holding a yellow sticky note he had found next to the bed. Nicholas was scrawled on it, jumbled but legible, as if he'd written it down in a hurry or right after waking up. Not a clue, Victor answered. He never talked about guys. I thought maybe he'd taken the vow. With AIDS infections on the rise in the city and conflicting information circulating about how it was transmitted, what the incubation period was, and even what all the symptoms were, some guys were limiting themselves to group massage and jack-off clubs, while others were abandoning sex entirely. A third group, maybe the largest, was having as much sex as before, and possibly more, with varying levels of anonymity, precaution, defiance, and fatalism, followed by hours and days and weeks of anxiety about whether the virus was now spreading from cell to cell inside them. That's all there is, just the name. Trevor stuck it onto the corner of the desk. He was already imagining how much work it would be to clean out the room and find someone new. Maybe he should just go it alone for a few months. He never mentioned it to me, Victor replied. And yet the name did ring a bell from somewhere, if not from Ryan. A customer at the bar? Or a guest at the hotel? There was that moment at work by the washroom, the last night he saw Ryan, when he seemed so frightened. But Victor hadn't seen anyone. What are all these? Trevor moved the nightstand aside, revealing a pile of sketchbooks by the bed. He picked one up, flipped through it. Drawings in pencil and charcoal, most of them men, most of them nudes. One man came up again and again. Black hair, black brows, piercing eyes, hairy chest, nice uncut cock. Cute. He drew his own porn. He turned the book around so Victor could see. Ring any bells? Lots of them, but no, I've never seen him before. Trevor turned the sketch back around and looked it over carefully. Me neither. If I was going to run off with anyone, though, I'd want it to be him. While Trevor looked through the sketchbooks, Victor sifted through a sheaf of snapshots and postcards he'd found in Ryan's bedside table. It was strange, poring over the personal items of someone who was both familiar and a stranger, looking for clues to a mystery that might not be a mystery. And it was strange being here with Trevor. When Ryan hadn't shown for work on Saturday night, Victor had called twice, left 2 messages, but got no response. He did the same the following afternoon when Boots hosted its weekly tea dance. He was dismayed, but assumed that Ryan had quit without quitting, a not uncommon phenomenon in the service industry. So he was surprised when the following Tuesday he had answered the phone at the bar to find Ryan's roommate, Trevor Mullen, on the other end. He'd been away working all weekend and had come home to Victor's messages. Ryan was nowhere to be found. It seemed too soon to call the police over what might turn out to be nothing. Trevor suggested they wait till a full week had passed. He had a funeral to go to the following Saturday, but said Victor should come by for lunch so they could figure out next steps. As Victor was getting dressed to head over to Trevor's, though, the police called to say that Ryan's clothes and wallet and ID had been found, and that was never a good sign. When Trevor opened the door, he realized that he and Victor had gotten together once a few years earlier, well before Ryan had come to the city. Victor had figured it out about 4 minutes earlier as he was looking at the buzzer board. It was one of those coincidences typical of the gay community, like finding out that you share a dentist or that you used to live on the same street. They had eyed each other one Wednesday evening at a rally protesting the Baz raids. Trevor tall and blonde and boyishly handsome. Victor shorter and broader with a stocky, muscular build. And then had seen each other again later on at Stages, the dance club above the Parkside Tavern. They made their way to each other, and then to the door, and then went back to Victor's place for some vigorous sex that prompted a next-door neighbor to pound on the wall and left them both giggling like schoolboys. They shushed each other, and Trevor rode Victor's cock slower and deeper, Victor chirking him until they both came, in a rush of murmurs, gasps, and sighs, just seconds apart. After, as they lay together, Victor became a bit teary and confided that a friend of his had just died in New York from some kind of 1,000,001 skin cancer. He went to the gym, he didn't smoke, he didn't use drugs, he was a fucking vegetarian. If someone like that could up and die at the age of 30, what did it mean for the rest of us? Trevor didn't know what to say. He just held Victor closer, but he too had heard of men getting suddenly ill in New York and San Francisco and cities overseas. And then a few weeks later, there it was in the New York Times, rare cancer seen in 41 homosexuals, though Trevor knew through the flight attendant grapevine that the number was considerably higher and encompassed more than just gay men. I thought I heard him come home last night, Trevor sighed, sifting through a pile of check stubs and matchbooks and cab receipts and credit card bills. I heard footsteps in the hallway. I actually lifted my head off the pillow, and I thought I heard him come into my room, all the way to the end of the bed. Okay, that's not creepy at all, Victor said, thumbing through a handful of old porn zines from New York that somehow made it across the border. Right? I sat up, I called his name, I came in here to look, and of course found nothing. Everything was the way he left it. Trevor sighed. I guess this is what it's going to be like now. All these new silences, and you fill them with whatever you expect to hear. He pulled down a postcard pinned to the wall, held it under the light. It was a promotion for a screening of Kenneth Anger's Magic Lantern Cycle at an art gallery on Queen Street, a fundraiser for one of the bathhouses damaged in the raids. The cycle had screened over 3 nights at the beginning of August. Had Ryan actually gone? He didn't seem like the type to sit through an evening of experimental film, no matter how many dicks were on display. But maybe he was. The art books and sketchbooks and posters and postcards suggested a side of Ryan that Trevor hadn't seen before, or maybe just hadn't noticed. I had a bad dream, Victor said abruptly, bashfully, as if he had done something wrong by having it, or maybe now by mentioning it. I don't remember much of it, but Ryan was in it, at least at the end, and he was in the bed with me, and he was so cold. His hands were like ice, and he pulled me up onto my side so that I faced him. He said something like, if he reaches for you, then he's already caught you. Something like that. He sang it almost like a children's rhyme. Jesus, and you think my shit is creepy. Trevor pinned the anger postcard back on the wall next to an odorama card for the John Waters movie Polyester. Who's supposed to be reaching for you? Ronald Reagan? Victor shrugged. I don't know. It didn't make any sense. I mean, I don't even know why we were in bed together. I liked him and all, but I was never actually into him. What do you think it means? Nothing. It doesn't mean anything, Trevor replied. It's just garbage that your brain is trying to get rid of to make room for new garbage. We're all having bad dreams. We all have a lot going on. Funny thing, though, Victor added, I woke up and I was covered in cum. It shot up out of my boxers and under my t-shirt. Definitely not Reagan, then. Trevor was examining a plain white postcard with a hole punched in it, signed by Yoko Ono, a hole to see the sky through. It was my first wet dream in years, Victor continued. I didn't even know what it was. In the dark, I thought it was blood. I threw myself out of bed and ran to the washroom. I was so scared. Blood and semen, the precious bodily fluids. Maybe Ryan had been diagnosed. Maybe he had run off. Nicholas could be an AIDS counselor. Or maybe the name of a doctor. Trevor knew there were bars and restaurants that would flat out fire you, and others that wouldn't allow you in food prep areas or let you handle glassware or garnishes or ice for the comfort and safety of the customers. The service industry didn't have drug plans or medical plans. You were at the mercy of the healthcare system itself. So maybe Ryan had panicked and ran. But if so, where? And for what? Oh, look! Trevor reached for an old Penguin paperback, worn, with creases in the spine. It was a high school copy of The Hound of the Baskervilles. He took it from the shelf, opened it up. Ryan's name, Windsor address, and phone number were on the inside front cover, carefully printed in blue ballpoint. Bingo, he said, and handed it to Victor. Let's give that a try. Do you really think he'd be back at his mother's? Victor asked. No, Trevor answered, but the police might have called her. Maybe they told her something they're not telling us. It's not that big a city. People don't just disappear. And if they do, they don't leave their clothes and shit behind. And yet they did. Men had gone missing from the bars and clubs and baths, one or two every few years, for as far back as he could remember. There had been talk on and off of serial killers, gangs of thugs, cops who wanted to teach the fags a lesson. He couldn't help but wonder if Ryan had walked down the wrong alley, asked the wrong guy for the time, and now was face down in the water somewhere along the shore or tossed into a dumpster. Victor stepped up behind him, put his arms around him, rested his head against Trevor's neck. Hey, he said, it's okay. It was comforting and oddly arousing, too. Trevor could feel the bulge in Victor's jeans pressing against him. Something inside him stirred, surprising him. He almost never played with the same guy twice. But as he relaxed into Victor's embrace, he glanced over at Ryan's bed and felt a rush of revulsion. He had a sudden urge to look beneath it, certain that something was under there, listening and watching. Not here, he whispered. I ain't afraid of no ghosts, Victor whispered back with an audible grin. Yeah, Trevor answered, but I am. He turned and, taking Victor's hands in his own, led him out into the hallway, towards his own room and onto his own bed. As they began to undress, to kiss and touch each other, he was sure he heard Ryan's bedroom door click shut.